Hello and welcome to the Wedding Guide podcast. I'm your host, Pete the Celebrant, and we are proudly sponsored by Easy Weddings. Easy Weddings helps thousands of couples nail their big day every year. With their award-winning directory and mobile apps, you can find and book top-rated wedding suppliers. Stay on track with their planning tools, or for a more hands-off approach, you can work with a wedding planner to save you time and money. And the best thing, it's free. So jump on easyweddings.com.au to start your stress-free journey up the aisle today. Joining us for the episode is Evangeline Victoria, a Melbourne Wedding Violinist. She takes us through her process and the multiple ways that she can join you for your wedding day, reception, elopement, and more. Allow me to introduce you to the very talented Evie Victoria. Well, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us to another episode. And here we have with us Evie. Evie, how are you doing?
I'm good, Pete. How are you?
Very good, very good. I'm too busy thinking about my grammatical error to the podcast, for the podcast is what I meant to say. But welcome. And I've been trying to think the first time we actually met at a wedding. It was at Werribee.
Yeah, Werribee Mansion. That was
Werribee
the end
Mansion.
of 2019, before COVID.
Before all the craziness started.
Yeah.
When you could plan events and you would know that actually happened.
Yeah. Postponements were a thing of not a thing.
Yeah. And it was a nice surprise to have you there at the wedding, because I think at a lot of weddings, if there is someone, performing live, it's normally an acoustic guitar. And in no way is that a negative, but it was nice to have a different musician there. And one thing that you offer is you're, much more than simply doing like a classical, and you do every range and genre of music that there is. And that was great for me to experience that and just see how others could enjoy that while they were having, you performed for during the ceremony, and then you performed after for drinks and that as well.
That's it.
So we're going to talk more about what you offer, but maybe why don't we just start with, how did your business, Evangeline Victoria Music, begin?
Yeah, well, I've been playing violin for 18 years. So I started when I was 7 years old in primary school. So that should already tell you too much about my age. But yeah, so I grew up in a musical family, my dad being a classical musician, like studying as well. And then not my mum, but my mum's side of the family, there's, some performing arts in there as well. And so grew up in a very musical household all through primary school, secondary school, was playing violin. I was also dancing, then graduated year 12, and I auditioned for the Victorian College of the Arts into the music theatre course. So I did that for a year, and then I transitioned over to the Melbourne Conservatorium of Music for my Bachelor of Music in Performance, majoring on violin and minoring on viola, so the slightly larger, deeper sounding violin. So through my years of studying, I was doing a lot of freelance work, doing lots of weddings, working with other musicians. I was friends with quite a few guitarists who used to, do some gigs at bars or weddings and that sort of thing. And they used to invite me along and ask me to bring my instrument, and I would just get up there with them and fake it until cool. We created some, it was pretty cool. It was performing on the spot, that really that taught me a really valuable skill with what I do. But did heaps of productions, and then I really got into networking as well with other musicians. So going to uni, I wanted to be able to work in a job that was very centered around music and what I was studying. So heaps of music theatre shows. I did a bit of mentoring with Orchestra Victoria, and I slowly networked my way up to be able to tour with Damien Leith, who was an Australian Idol winner, doing performances with the National Institute of Circus Arts, students in the circus area, and working with retired performers from Cirque du Soleil, really, really colourful experience and work, just working as a freelancer. And weddings was something I always came back to. It was always something that I was like, this is what I want to do more of. I love doing weddings. It just gave me such a unique feel good like feeling. It was something that I just loved doing, and I always remember saying, I want to do more of this, but I didn't know how to. I had no idea about business, and being a solo violinist, I didn't know how to be more than that. Like I felt very restricted just being a solo violinist. I always felt like, I needed to have someone accompanying me, but I also didn't want to have to rely on someone else to have a business, if that makes sense. I just felt quite restricted.
Yeah.
And it was actually earlier this year that I was preparing for a wedding that I had. It was actually one of my friend's weddings. I grew up with her, and I was putting together my repertoire for her wedding, her song requests and everything. And, I was just sort of messing around, and I think I pulled up a karaoke version of Michael Bublé's Feel Good.
Yeah.
And I just started, I didn't have any sheet music or anything. I hadn't made an arrangement. I was just like, I'm just going to figure this out by ear. And I started playing along to it. And then I just had my aha moment, as lame as that sounds. I had this moment where I was like, oh my God, I can totally do this, but with backing tracks. And so I started sourcing really minimal acoustic backing tracks. I started, creating some of my own tracks. I did all my own arrangements. So everything that I play is my own arrangement that I've done for violin. And then I was I just remember sitting there in my living room being like, oh my goodness, this is the moment that Evangeline Victoria music was born. I just remember being like, I want it, this is going to be my business. This is what I'm going to do. And it was my mind went into overdrive of all right, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And this is how I'm going to do it. And I was just so excited because it was this thing that I knew I'd always wanted to do, but felt restricted that I couldn't do it. It was it just all came together. And as soon as I said it out loud, as soon as I was like, this is what I'm going to do, the universe was like, oh yeah, okay, I hear you. Stand by. You're just going to get some phone calls. And that's I remember the same week I got a call from Laurie from Camp David Farm, that's a wedding venue. And she got me playing for her Mother's Day high tea.
Awesome.
And then from there I got some gigs, and then I got a proposal. And then from there it just sort of everything was just sort of falling into place. I was very, very lucky for how I started my business, but it was I just felt so right. Felt so right.
That's great. That's so cool. So you've been playing violin since you were 7 years old.
I've been, little baby violin.
My goodness.
my dad was very stoked that I had chosen that I wanted to, play violin, or he was stoked that I wanted to learn a musical instrument. My mum, not so much. I was under strict instructions after the first few years of learning violin that I was to practice when mum wasn't home.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thanks,
my mum was mum was very supportive, but she's like, I'll be supportive, keep at it, she was, helping me stay committed and everything, but she didn't have the patience dad has for beginner musicians.
And the lovely sounds they create.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Cool. Great. So I'm curious about your process with couples, but I'm, I guess, a little excited on what you also offer couples as well. So why don't you run us through the process with couples?
Yeah, so when a couple gets in touch with me, usually through either social media or my website, first thing I like to do is get that couple on a phone call. Even when I send messages through text, I often use voice dictate. I am much more of a talker. I'm able to express more through my voice. And I guess that comes from being a performer, but I love to get them on a phone call, and that's an opportunity for couples to get to know me, and my opportunity to get to know the couple. And then from there, the first question I ask is how did you meet? What's your love story? Because what I do with my music, no matter what I'm booked for, whether it's a ceremony, reception, first dance, proposal, whatever it is, it's more than just music. It's storytelling. And so what's the story that I'm telling? What's your love story? What is the purpose behind what I'm playing? And so yeah, so that's where it sort of starts, and then from there, I get to know the couple's vision. So what's the vision for the wedding day? Some couples have like a really specific idea of what they want, which is great, and then other couples have absolutely no clue. All they know is like, we're just getting in touch with you because we love the idea of having a violinist at our wedding, but we have no clue. What do you offer? And then both, it sort of, there's still so much to play with in terms of like specific visions to carte blanche, I think it's called. So yeah, from there, that's where we sort of go through like if they've chosen a certain song or like specific songs that they've like played. So very often, probably like 75% of the weddings that I play, I'm doing the ceremony. So we're looking at like processional, which is when the bride walks down the aisle, or groom walks down the aisle.
Yep.
Then you've got your registry signing, any special rites. Some ceremonies have religious background, others don't. So any special rites that are in there, and then your recessional, and then there's some weddings have every wedding's different. Weddings like snowflakes, hey, they're all unique. So
that they are.
that's where we go through. Yeah. So we go through any specific songs, and that's where I ask, like why have you chosen this song? It could be, this is the anthem of our relationship. It could be, this is the favorite song of a lost loved one. And this is our way of having that person here at our wedding. Finding out the reason why a certain song has been chosen enables me to, it helps me arrange it specifically for this couple. So I never ever play like the same set list or even the same arrangement of a specific song for another wedding. Every single wedding is tailored, every single wedding is customized because every story is different. And yeah, so from there I get to know as much as I can to understand what this couple needs from me as a musician, as a violinist for their wedding day. But yeah, so I generally do I'll do ceremonies, I do canapes and cocktail hour as background music, and I do like receptions. So I don't do like the dance floor for receptions as a soloist. Sometimes I work with DJs to like add that extra bit of flair as a sort of a feature artist, I guess. But yeah, it's I'm not gonna lie, it can be a little bit tricky getting people up on the dance floor as a violinist. By myself, but with a DJ it's a lot of fun. And then I do a bit of like solo features for first dances, father and daughter dances, mother and son, certain like specific dances or features, cake cutting, that sort of thing during the reception. And yeah, it's sort of like every wedding's different, I guess. Some people will be like, we're having this special item on our wedding day. It's going to be like, this is what's happening. We'd like to have some music behind it. Like, yeah, I can do that. It's about, for me, it's about being as versatile as possible because, as I said, every wedding's different, every couple's different, and everyone wants something different. And it's about bringing that something special to each wedding day. So everyone's is different. And yeah, and the same with with genres and styles of music as well. So one couple might want me to play a classical, like exclusively classical wedding, and then the next couple might want me to play exclusively klezmer music, or jazz, or it could be anything. So whether it's my little motto is whether it's Beethoven, Beyonce, or the Black Eyed Peas, I can bring your favorite song to life.
That's great. That should definitely be a motto of yours. That's great. That's what I think the strength of your business is that you can be there from the very start, because you've done some proposals for couples. You've actually been there, and then you've been at their wedding, and you can do songs at the ceremony, you can do canapé hour, and then I think live music joined with a DJ, even if it's just one musical instrument, it adds a whole different element to a DJ. And obviously,
yeah,
a good DJ will do an incredible job mixing. And we had Aaron on the podcast not long ago, and they really like it. It adds a fantastic atmosphere. But to have a live instrument there just boosts every song. And look, I've seen live saxophonists at receptions. Be very keen to see a violinist there. So I definitely hope to see you at more receptions joining a DJ, because 100% just lifts the atmosphere on a dance floor. Yeah,
and it's about the performance there as well. Like, again, it's not just the music, it's a performance, especially for reception. You're throwing a party, like,
yeah,
you know, it's like a whole other level, like bring in a whole other dynamic, and it's great. But yeah, I'll have to crack open the electric violin case and get that one out soon.
100%. And it's very true. Like, it is a performance, and I see what I do as a wedding celebrant. I am there to entertain. Now, when I say it, I'm almost hesitant to say it to couples, because I sound like I'm almost there like a performing clown, or I don't know. Just it sounds weird, but what I mean when I say we're there to entertain and to perform is to provide not only the couple but their friends and family with this incredible experience that sets the tone and the atmosphere for the day, where people are engaged, where it's not something that they're going to and they're looking at it going like, man, I just would rather be anywhere else right now. But if they're actually like, they're involved, they're actually observing, and they're enjoying what they're watching or what they're hearing and listening, and they're laughing, or they're just getting into that moment, then we've done our job as a performer,
100%.
entertainer, because we're bringing people into the experience of having a wedding, rather than someone's just there watching it going, yeah, it's okay. It's like, no, I want people to be in that actual moment, enjoying it. You want to create memories, because people will remember how they feel.
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. And as well as that, you know, for a wedding, like you're there as friends and family to support your loved ones getting married, and it's so special. But you know, like if there can be something there, you know, for example, like during a registry signing, during the ceremony, like, you know, some couples prefer to do it during the ceremony, others are now doing it after the ceremony. But you know, if you have like a solo violinist there putting on a small performance during the ceremony while the couple are signing the papers, because let's be honest, like, it's not the most exciting part for your guests to watch you sign some paper.
No.
it's an important moment, but it's also like, you know, if you can give something there, just a little something for them to, you know, enjoy, it's just like a nice, but it's like giving a gift back to your guests.
Yep. And I think having a live performer there definitely adds something more than just we're going to play some music. And again, there's nothing wrong with putting Spotify on and having your friend press play. But if you're talking about wanting to create the most incredible experience you can, having someone there is just something about watching someone who is good at what they do perform an instrument, and there is an enjoyment in that, of just enjoying someone else's skill. And I know you've got skill, because if you haven't already, and I encourage you to do so after the podcast, head over to Evie's website and Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel, and she's got a whole bunch of performances that you've done with some backing tracks from all your different songs. Songs that you love, ones that, you know, your Ed Sheerans that we played every week, to ones that you might have even thought of going, oh, wouldn't even consider that being played with a violin. And so you can really get a great idea of having what it would be like to have Evie at your ceremony, for what it would be like. Now, you also, I guess, do you have any stories, or I'm curious as how having a live music there makes someone's day, I guess, different to the rest. And we've talked a little bit about that. You know, it can be a little bit different to having an acoustic guitar, and definitely different to having someone's Spotify list. Do you have any stories of what even people have come and said to you afterwards, or what couples have shared?
Yeah, I think the best compliment I've ever received after a wedding ceremony was like this sweet lady came up to me and she was like, I feel like I'm in a Disney movie. And I was like, oh, that's the best compliment ever. Like that's, yes, like big tick. My job is done. Like best day ever. But yeah, I mean, I guess like with having a violin at your wedding ceremony or your reception or your proposal, or the idea of being serenaded by a violin is, it's very unique. Like it's a very unique instrument, but it's like I mean, if I were to ask you, think romantic classical music, what's something that comes into your head? It's like a violin solo, right? Or like you're like a violinist in a red dress holding a red rose. I've got a very specific image in my head. I don't know why. But yeah, so it's sort of like creates that. It's a very unique mood. Like it's sort of hard to explain. It's very hard to put into words, but it's sort of like it's a whole other level of romance. And it sets a very special tone, especially for a love story. I think there is so much like, it's just a very storytelling instrument, and being able to tell stories through playing it, I think like that's what creates something so special, especially for a wedding. And I think especially in my process, like I'm big on storytelling and performing. It's more than just the music, it's more than just the notes on the page. It's about really telling a story, like I've said 100 times now. Sorry.
I'm hearing you.
It's like, I don't know how to put it into words. I don't know how to. I'm sorry, Pete.
No, that's all right.
It's just something special.
It is something special, and it is, and I imagine that that for that lady to come and say she feels like she's in a Disney movie, well, that's fantastic. And that sound, I imagine the music you're playing was to accomplish that. And as we've talked about elsewhere, it's not just classical music that you play all different genres of music. So for one couple, having that more romantic or more classical music that's exactly what they're after. And for another couple, they just want to provide something different. They want to spice the wedding up a little bit. And they're like it's like, oh, well, we've been to weddings, they have acoustic guitar, and that's like, that's great, but we want a live music, but we don't know who to have. And I think a violinist would just add a whole different level. And I think a lot of people are looking for something different for their wedding. And it can be hard because a lot of weddings have a similar process and they do look the same in a lot of ways. So I think having a live violinist there, well, I'm hoping becomes more of a thing, especially for you, becomes more of a common thing, because it's very versatile, and you are great at what you do in sharing that story. Another aspect I'd like to talk about is elopements, because at the moment, a lot of couples are wanting to get married. At least in Victoria, we are slowly coming back in time where we can have weddings, which is fantastic just in itself. But for some couples, they're not able to have a big wedding. And so they want to, instead of having, if they can't have 50, 100, 200 people there, they're just like, let's just go and elope. But an elopement still means that they want to make it more significant than just the legals only signing. So they don't simply just want to sign the documents. They want to make it an experience. Why don't you share with us what your plan is and what you've already done for other couples?
Yeah, so in the elopement space, I think that, and it's the same with weddings, there's sort of an idea of how weddings should look like. And I think it's really important, especially like as an industry, we help couples understand that you can break free from what things should and shouldn't be. Tradition doesn't have to be there, and you can make your wedding or your elopement anything you like. And so especially with elopements, because I think they're now more and more becoming more common, especially with not being able to have certain numbers at your wedding, or with COVID lockdowns, that sort of thing. I think it's really important, if you choose to have an elopement, that you still do what you want to do. Like, think about what is important to you. If you were to plan a wedding, what is important to you? And then if you take like the non-negotiables and take that away and turn that into an elopement, that's what I think is really important. That couples who choose to elope, they're doing that is important to them. It's still their special day. It's still an experience. It's more than just signing a piece of paper and saying I do. It is so much more than that. It's still such an important moment in your relationship. And so if you want to walk down the aisle being serenaded to a violin at your elopement, freaking do that. Like, I mean, I'm here for it. I'll serenade you. I think it's something, if you're going to do an elopement and you've hired your celebrant, you've hired a photographer, why not have some live music as well? It's even at a wedding, like you don't just hire a live musician for your guests. You hire the musician for you as well. So why not do that for an elopement? Have a live musician there for a couple of songs, your two favorite songs. You can even have your first dance as a couple at your elopement. It doesn't matter what, there's no rules on, I mean, there's probably legal rules about what you should have incorporated in an elopement in terms of the celebrant's point of view. As far as I'm concerned, there are no rules. Like, if you want to have live music, you should be able to have live music. And it's if you choose me to be for an elopement, it'll be the same as a wedding, where I'm still going to be telling your story. It's still going to be an incredibly tailored performance just for you as an intimate couple and your witnesses. And that's another thing as well. Like, me being there as a musician, you've also got one more person as a witness if you can't get someone else to be there.
True. Very true.
So just a little like minor thing. Tick another box.
Witness for hire.
Yeah. We'll also play violin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in terms of like having live musicians at elopements, it's something that's not really thought of, but I think it's available. People, I mean, musicians, especially now, would be more and more musicians would be so open to serenading, doing a private serenade for a couple as they elope and they're getting married. There doesn't have to be, an audience of 100, 200 guests there. It can just be 2 people, 5 people. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So good. Such a great idea. And particularly because some elopements, like, you want to go, yes, you go into the city, but you might want to go somewhere remote, somewhere just where there's not a lot of people, or you want to you found a paddock somewhere and you want to go there, and you don't really want to cart a sound system or anything, but you want to have a bit more than just getting your phone out and playing Spotify. So have someone join you and just have live music, being surrounded by that. What an incredible experience.
Absolutely. It just adds to the memory. Like, life is memory making. And if you can just make that moment, it's a moment that you will never ever forget. And if you have just that sound of your favorite song being played, your relationship anthem being played on a violin just for you, that has been arranged just for you as a couple, like, imagine that. It's a memory that you'll never forget.
Yeah. 100%. Well, Evie, what is your best advice for couples?
I've heard you ask this question to other vendors, and I love the answers that other vendors answer. It's actually, as I listen to this podcast, I'm always like, what would my answer to this be? And so I've thought about this a lot. So I think it's really important that when choosing your vendors, make sure they are people you vibe with. I think it is so important. Like, you choose your guests based on, the people in your life, the friends and family in your life that you want to spend your wedding day with. You're also going to be spending a lot of your wedding day with your vendors. Make sure you vibe with them. Probably, like, the the planning process, no matter how short or long it is, you're going to be spending a lot of time with these people as they, bring together your vision for your day. And every one of your vendors have the exact same goal of making sure your day is as perfect as you imagine it to be.
Yeah.
But if you don't vibe with us, it's I think you create friends out of the process of planning, and the planning process is, of course, it's a journey. It's not just about the destination. It is a journey, and it's a journey to enjoy. It's a journey that brings you and your partner closer together. And you're going to be working with these vendors, whether it's not just daily or weekly, a lot in the process. And so finding people that you vibe with, finding people that you can become long life friends with. And this is the thing that I've really found in what I do, is that I'm still friends with so many of my couples, because the planning process was basically the start of this amazing friendship being built, and along a journey and a common goal to creating the most magical wedding. So yeah, I think when choosing your vendors, not just look at what they do, but also look at the person behind it. Look at the person who's looking after you, because you want to feel safe and looked after. And if you find the right vendors for you, you will feel looked after.
So good. Great. 100%. You've got to vibe with who you're going to have on your day. And when you do that, it just makes the day easier for yourself, when you can just trust that the people you've got there, they've got you back. You know what they're like.
100%.
They're not going to stress you out. If there's an issue, they'll deal with it. And it's important to feel comfortable with who you have. And I tell every couple I meet, even we initially meet, it's probably one of the last things I say is just hey, most important thing is just pick someone that you feel comfortable with. And that might not be me, it might be someone else. The important thing is that on their day, they have someone who they can trust. And as you said, they just vibe with.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Evie, thank you so much for your time and sharing with us about your business and how it started. And I just encourage everyone, go and take a look at all of Evie's work. She's put it on every platform for you: Facebook, YouTube, it's on her Instagram. If you just want to listen to a little bit of violin, but played incredibly well in all sorts of genres, go and take a look at all those. Links will be in the show notes. Make sure you check her out. And thank you everyone for listening. And thank you, Evie, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Pete. It's been amazing to be here.
Cool. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.